In a jam-packed New York studio, Greg Gutfeld stood smirking like a predator while President Donald Trump stormed the stage red-faced and furious. What began as a comedy show instantly exploded into the most savage, no-holds-barred showdown in television history. With the world watching live, Gutfeld looked Trump dead in the eyes and dropped the ultimate bomb. Barron Trump wasn't Melania's son, he was Ivanka's, and Donald Trump himself was the father. The studio audience in New York was buzzing with energy on a Thursday night. This was Gutfeld, Fox News late-night show hosted by Greg Gutfeld. Greg Gutfeld walked straight onto the stage under the bright lights. No big smile, no long setup. He grabbed the mic and looked right into the camera. "Tonight, I'm blowing up a secret that could bring the entire Trump family crashing down. This isn't some rumor. This is real evidence." The studio audience went dead quiet for half a second. Then, a nervous buzz started. Greg didn't wait. He leaned forward and dropped the bomb. Barron Trump isn't Donald and Melania's only son, and the woman who actually gave birth to him is his own sister, Ivanka. Gasps ripped through the crowd. A few people laughed like it had to be a joke, but most just sat there stunned, mouths open. Greg held up his hand fast, cutting off the noise before it got loud. "Hold on. Don't laugh yet, because I've got proof and it's ugly." He turned to the big screens behind him. Let's start with 2005 and 2006. Ivanka disappears from the public eye for months. No modeling gigs, no business events, nothing. At the exact same time, Barron is born and suddenly appears as Melania's miracle baby. Look at these photos. 3 old pictures popped up on every screen. In the first one, Ivanka is holding newborn Barron, staring down at him with an expression that didn't look like a big sister. It looked like something deeper. The second photo showed her cradling him close, cheek against his head, while Trump stood right behind them with a protective hand on her shoulder. The third one was grainy but clear enough. Ivanka in a private room, exhausted, with Barron on her chest. Greg let the images sit there for a few seconds so everyone could really see them. Who wants to stand up right now and tell me this is just normal brother-sister stuff? Because I've got more where that came from. The crowd was getting louder now, some people shouting questions, others whispering fast to the person next to them. Phones were already coming out. The energy in the studio felt like right before a storm hits. Greg smiled a little, that sharp, dangerous smile he gets when he knows he's got the room. This isn't about ratings. This is about a kid who deserves to know the truth. And tonight, the whole country is going to hear it. That's when the sound came from backstage. Heavy footsteps, slow, angry. Every head in the audience turned at the same time. The side curtain moved. Donald Trump stepped out onto the stage. No announcement, no music, just him in a dark suit, face already red, eyes locked on Greg like lasers. He wasn't supposed to be here this early. The entire studio sucked in a breath at once. Trump grabbed a handheld mic from a stagehand without even looking at the guy. His voice came out low and rough. "You better stop right there, Greg." The lights seemed brighter. The air felt thicker. Greg didn't back up an inch. He just looked at the president standing 10 feet away and said, "Looks like the family just showed up to the party early." The audience erupted. Half were cheering, half were in total shock. Greg didn't even glance at Trump standing there fuming. He turned back to the audience and the cameras like the president wasn't 10 feet away. "You want proof? Here's round 2. He tapped his tablet and an old email popped up huge on every screen. This came from a former Trump family assistant back in 2005. I'll read it word for word. Greg cleared his throat and read it out loud, and clear. "Meeting between Mr. Trump and Ivanka today at the private residence. Very emotional. She looks scared. Staff instructed to keep quiet about any rumors regarding a possible pregnancy. Mr. Trump said this stays in the family, no exceptions." The studio went completely silent for a beat, then exploded with whispers and shocked gasps. Greg kept rolling. That email is dated 9 months before Barron was officially introduced as Melania's son. Coincidence? Not even close. Before anyone could breathe, he hit the next button. The big screen switched to a live video feed. A woman in her late 50s appeared, face blurred for safety, voice steady but nervous. "My name is Maria. I worked inside the Trump household for 8 years. Right after Barron was born, I heard Ivanka crying in her room. She kept saying the same thing over and over. My child must be protected. No one can ever know." She wasn't talking like a sister. She was talking like a mother who was terrified. The audience lost it. Some people jumped to their feet. Others shouted, "Holy shit!" Phones lit up everywhere. Trump, still standing off to the side, but now gripping the mic so hard his knuckles were white, suddenly roared through the speakers. "Stop this right now! Cut that feed! This is all lies!" His voice boomed across the studio like thunder. Security looked nervous. The crowd split instantly, half booing Trump, half cheering like they were at a boxing match. Greg didn't raise his voice. He just looked straight at Trump with a calm, icy stare and said, "You haven't heard it all yet, Mr. President. There's a lot more coming." The mix of boos and applause turned into a full roar. People were on their feet now, some clapping, some yelling at the stage. The energy felt dangerous, like the whole place could blow up any second. Greg waited just long enough for the noise to peak, then stepped forward and delivered the line that hung in the air like a grenade. "Barron deserves to know the truth. His real mother is his sister, Ivanka." The studio went nuts. Trump took a step forward, face bright red, pointing straight at Greg. Trump had enough. He charged out onto the stage like a bull, face beet red, eyes blazing. He ripped the mic from the stand and pointed it straight at Greg. "Barron is my son with Melania, my only son. Ivanka is my daughter, nothing else. This incest bullshit ends right now." The word incest hit the audience like a slap. People gasped, some covered their mouths, others leaned forward in their seats. Trump wasn't holding back anymore. He stepped closer to the center of the stage, voice booming through every speaker. "I built this family. I raised these kids, and some late-night hack thinks he can smear us on TV? Wrong." He spun and jabbed a finger right at Greg's face. "You're a ratings-chasing clown. You touch my family and I'll sue you into the dirt. I'll bury you in this garbage network so deep you'll never work again." Greg didn't flinch. He stood there cool as ice, looked Trump dead in the eyes, and answered in a flat, calm voice. "Sue me all you want, Mr. President. The truth doesn't need lawyers." The crowd went wild, half cheering Greg's nerve, half stunned at how fast things were spiraling. Trump's face got even redder. He motioned to a producer off stage, and the screens behind him lit up with official-looking documents. "Here's your proof. Pictures of Melania holding Barron the day he was born, his real birth certificate. Melania Trump, mother. Donald J. Trump, father. Game over." Greg let out a short, sharp laugh. He didn't even look at Trump's photos. Instead, he tapped his tablet again. "Cute. Now let's hear from Ivanka herself." A grainy audio clip from 2010 started playing. Ivanka's voice filled the studio, talking low to an assistant. "I can't make it public. He's my son. We have to keep calling him my sister's boy. Dad says it's the only way." The audio cut off and the studio exploded. People were yelling, standing up, some clapping, others booing. Trump looked furious, his jaw locked tight. He took 2 big steps forward until he was less than a meter away from Greg. Their faces were inches apart. No one moved. Then, the giant screens lit up again without any warning. A new video feed came on, showing an older man in a white coat, his face partially hidden for protection. "My name is Dr. Richard Harlan," he said, voice steady but serious. "I served as the Trump family doctor for more than 15 years. In January 2006, I was called to a private location to examine Ivanka Trump. She had just given birth. I confirmed everything medically, Barron was her son. Donald Trump was standing right there in the room and ordered me to keep quiet for the rest of my life. He told me my career, my license, everything would be destroyed if I ever talked. The audience exploded. People jumped out of their seats, shouting, gasping, some cheering, others yelling, "No way!" Phones were held high, recording every second. Dr. Harlan continued, "Melania was not part of that delivery. I was told to list her as the mother on all records. It was a direct order from Mr. Trump himself." Trump completely snapped. His face turned a deep, angry purple as he screamed into the microphone at the top of his lungs. "That's complete bullshit! Fake news! All of it is fabricated lies! I'll sue you! I'll sue this doctor! I'll sue this whole damn network! I'll destroy every single person involved!" He was shaking with rage, pointing wildly at the screen, spit flying as he kept yelling. Greg stayed completely calm, not raising his voice even a little. He simply nodded and brought up the next piece of evidence. "Let's look at round 3, Mr. President. These are private photos taken in 2005 at your secret Florida villa. 9 full months. Ivanka and you, alone together. No Melania anywhere in sight. Take a good look." The screens filled with clear, time-stamped pictures. Ivanka visibly pregnant in a sundress, Trump's arm wrapped protectively around her, the two of them walking on a private beach, sitting together by the pool. The dates matched perfectly with the timeline. The crowd roared even louder, a mix of shock and disbelief filling the studio. Greg stepped closer to Trump and looked him straight in the eyes. "You're not just the father here. You're the man who covered this up for 20 years to save your own image. You forced your daughter to lie. You made your own son grow up believing a total fantasy. That's not protecting your family. That's destroying it." Trump's eyes were wild with fury. He yanked his phone out right there on live television. "I'm ending this right now. I'm calling Ivanka." The call went live on the big screens for everyone to see. After 2 rings, Ivanka appeared looking pale, stressed, and clearly shaken. "Dad, what is happening?" Her voice cracked. "Please, don't let them do this to us. Don't let them tear our family apart like this on national TV." "I can't," Trump cut in fast, pointing at the camera. "Tell them the truth, Ivanka. Tell everyone Barron is not your son." Before she could answer, the screen suddenly went black. Ivanka had ended the call. The studio fell into a heavy, stunned silence. No one spoke. No one even breathed loud. Trump slowly turned his head toward Greg, his eyes burning with pure hatred. Greg locked eyes with Trump and didn't blink. He turned toward the cameras, his voice sharp and steady. "You want the final nail in the coffin? Here it is. Indirect DNA evidence from a source deep inside the family's trusted circle. These results are devastating." The massive screens behind him lit up with the document. Greg started reading it out loud, line by line, loud enough for every person in the studio and every viewer at home to hear clearly. Barron Trump shares 99.9% genetic markers with Ivanka Trump. The probability of a mother-son relationship between Ivanka and Barron is statistically overwhelming. Maternal match with Melania Trump is less than 0.1%. Paternal link to Donald Trump confirmed. Conclusion: Barron's biological mother is Ivanka Trump. The studio went completely ballistic. People screamed, jumped out of their seats, some cheering wildly while others sat in total shock. Phones were everywhere, recording every second. Trump stood there frozen, his face drained of color. For a few long seconds, the powerful man looked broken, shoulders slumped, eyes wide like he'd been hit by a truck. Then the explosion came. Trump's face twisted with pure rage as he lunged forward, screaming at Greg at the top of his lungs. "You just destroyed my family, you sick bastard. You ruined everything we built. I made Ivanka sign a confidentiality agreement the week Barron was born. I forced her to stay silent, to play along with the lie, all to protect her son, to protect this family. I did what I had to do." The audience gasped loudly at the confession. Trump had just admitted on live national television that he made his own daughter sign papers to hide the truth. The weight of that statement hung heavy in the air. Greg remained completely calm, his voice low and cutting like a knife. Barron deserves to know the truth. He's lived 20 years believing a lie. And you chose to cover it up instead of stepping up and being a real father. You sacrificed your daughter and your son just to save your own image. That's not strength. That's cowardice. The crowd erupted into thunderous applause. Hundreds of people stood up, clapping hard, some shouting Greg's name, others yelling, "Tell the truth!" The energy had completely shifted. Trump looked around the studio, breathing heavily, sweat on his forehead, realizing he had just handed his enemy the biggest moment of the night. Desperate and furious, Trump pulled out his phone with shaking hands. "Enough of this. I'm calling Melania right now. She'll end this once and for all." He dialed on live TV. The call appeared on the giant screens for the whole world to see. It rang once, twice, 3 times. No answer. Then a text message popped up on every monitor in big, clear letters, and "I know everything, but I choose silence." The entire studio fell into a dead, heavy silence. No one spoke. No one moved. Trump stared at the message, his face a mix of shock, pain, and betrayal. Melania had just confirmed she knew the truth all along and refused to back him up. Greg stood quietly, watching the president crumble in real time. The weight of that single text message crushed the room. Trump completely lost control. He lunged forward and grabbed the microphone right out of Greg's hand, their faces inches apart. "You think you won, you little bastard? You think this is over?" he growled, voice shaking with rage. Security moved in, but stopped short as the whole studio held its breath. Greg didn't move an inch. He simply reached over, tapped his tablet, and played the final audio clip. Trump's own voice from 2006 filled the studio, clear and unmistakable. "Ivanka, our son will be the most beautiful secret this family has ever had. We keep him safe, we keep him hidden, and no one will ever know the truth. This stays between us forever." The audience gasped so loud, it sounded like the roof might blow off. Trump froze, his face twisted in shock and fury as he heard his own words played back on national television. He slammed the mic down and screamed, "That's edited! It's all fake! I'll sue you for everything you're worth, Gutfeld! I'll destroy your career! I'll bury you, your show, and this entire network! You're finished!" Greg stood completely calm, staring Trump down without raising his voice. "You can sue me all you want, Mr. President. Go ahead. But you can't sue the truth. The truth is already out." The crowd went absolutely wild, cheering and clapping louder than they had all night. Greg turned away from Trump and faced the audience and the cameras directly. His voice was strong and clear. "Tomorrow morning, Barron Trump is going to learn who his real mother is, and all of you watching, you just witnessed history." This wasn't a stunt. This was the truth finally coming out. Right then, the giant screens behind him lit up with one simple line in big white letters: "Barron deserves the truth." The studio fell into a heavy silence. Trump stood there for a few more seconds, breathing hard, looking around at the roaring crowd and the cameras. Then, without another word, he turned and stormed off the stage. His footsteps echoed through the quiet studio as he disappeared behind the curtain. No one clapped, no one cheered, just dead silence as the most powerful man in the room walked out defeated. Greg slowly walked back to his chair and sat down alone in the center of the stage. The lights stayed bright on him. He looked straight into the main camera, no smile, no smirk, just dead serious. "Tonight wasn't a joke," he said quietly. "Tonight was the truth, and nothing will ever be the same again." The screen faded to black.